The air in Memphis, in early December, always carried a certain crispness, a hint of the approaching holidays even before the first snowflake dared to fall. For 7-year-old Leo Maxwell, it meant one thing: Christmas was coming. And with Christmas came Santa Claus. Leo was a boy of simple pleasures and boundless imagination. He lived with his mom, Sarah, in a small house, not far from the grandest, most talked-about mansion in town, Graceland. He'd heard stories, of course, about the famous singer who lived there, the one with the sideburns and the voice that made grown women swoon. But to Leo, that was just grown-up stuff. His world revolved around subterrace, comic books, and the undeniable magic of Christmas. On this particular blustery afternoon, Leo was on an unscheduled adventure. His mom, usually meticulous about his after-school routine, had a last-minute emergency at work. Kind neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, was supposed to pick him up, but a miscommunication meant Leo found himself walking home alone, a route he wasn't entirely familiar with. Took a wrong turn, a detour he believed was leading him to a secret shortcut, but which actually led him closer and closer to the imposing stone walls of Graceland. He wasn't trying to trespass, not really. He was just curious. He'd heard the gates were sometimes open for special deliveries, and today they were ajar. A large truck, looking vaguely like a delivery vehicle, was pulled up, and a few men were milling about. And then he saw him. The man was standing on the porch, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, a figure of undeniable presence. He was larger than life, dressed in what looked like a dark, somewhat flashy suit. His hair was black and slicked back, and he had sideburns that nearly touched his jawline. But what truly caught Leo's attention was his build. He was, to Leo's young eyes, big, not just tall, but wide, with a comfortable, hearty air about him. And then there was the laugh. A deep rumbling chuckle that seemed to come from his hurried boots as he chatted with one of the men. Leo's eyes widened. The red suit was missing, sure, and the beard was all wrong, but the feeling, the sheer jolliness, this had to be him. Santa Claus, in disguise perhaps, doing some pre-Christmas recon. It made perfect sense. Why would Santa always wear the same suit? He had to blend in. Taking a deep breath, mustering all his courage, Leo walked towards the open gate, his small school backpack bumping against his leg, past the delivery truck, ignored the glances of the men, and walked right up to the porch steps. The man, Elvis Presley himself, had just dismissed his cook and was about to head back inside for an early dinner. He turned, hearing the light footsteps, and his eyes landed on the small boy standing at the foot of his porch, looking up at him with an expression of absolute awe and wonder. Elvis was used to fans, to screaming teenagers, to grown men and women trying to get a glimpse of him. But a child alone on his property, looking at him like that, this was new. Crouched down, a genuine, gentle smile spreading across his face. "Well, hello there, little fella," he rumbled, his voice low and warm, surprisingly soft for such a big man. "Are you lost?" Leo shook his head vigorously, his eyes still wide fixed on Elvis's face. "No, sir. I mean, yes, a little. But it's okay. I found you." He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You're early this year, aren't you?" Elvis blinked. Early for what? He was always early for dinner. "Early for what, son?" he asked, a touch of amusement in his tone. Leo leaned in further, as if sharing the world's most vital secret. "For Christmas. I know you like to keep it a surprise, but I guessed it. You're checking on all the kids, aren't you? You see who's been naughty or nice?" He paused, then puffed out his chest. "Santa Claus. This kid thought he was Santa Claus." He glanced over his shoulder where Joe Esposito, his right-hand man, was just stepping out of the house. Joe caught his eye, a quizzical look on his face. Elvis subtly shook his head, motioning for Joe to stay. But 1,000 thoughts raced through Elvis's mind. Could correct the kid, tell him he was Elvis Presley, the famous singer. He could explain that he wasn't Santa. But as he looked into Leo's innocent, trusting eyes, seeing the pure, unadulterated belief shining there, something in Elvis shifted. He'd been feeling a bit disconnected lately. The endless touring, the movies, the constant demands of fame. It was fulfilling in its own way, but it lacked a certain magic, a real unfiltered joy. And here, standing before him, was a tangible piece of that magic. A slow smile, different from his usual public grin, began to spread across Elvis's face. It was a smile of genuine delight, a spark of mischievous fun igniting in his eyes. He leaned closer, mimicking Leo's conspiratorial whisper. "Well now," he rumbled, his voice dropping to a deeper, more theatrical tone. "You caught me, didn't you? Not many children are quite as observant as you, young man. Most folks don't recognize me out of the, red suit." He paused, tapping his chin thoughtfully. "And my beard? It changes, you see? Sometimes it's white and bushy. Sometimes it's, well, this," he gestured to his dark sideburns. Leo giggled, a bright, clear sound that warmed Elvis's heart. "I knew it. You're just like a spy." "Exactly." Elvis chuckled, the sound more robust now, leaning into the road. "Now what's your name, young fellow who can spot Santa Claus in his incognito attire?" "Leo," the boy said, beaming. "Leo Maxwell." "Leo Maxwell," Elvis repeated, testing the name. "A fine, strong name now, Leo. About this little visit of yours. Did you have something special you wanted to tell old Saint Nick while he's out and about?" He winked, a mischievous glint in his eye. Leo's face lit up even more. "I have my list. It's at home. And I have a really, really important question." Elvis's heart gave a little flutter. "A list?" This was getting serious, but the joy on Leo's face was infectious. He couldn't back out now. He wouldn't. "And then perhaps, if you're quick, we can arrange for that list to find its way to me." Leo's eyes widened. The dinner plates teleport. He truly was Santa. This was the best day ever. "Open," Leo bounced on the balls of his feet. "My question is, are the elves real-like? Really real? And do they like peanut butter and banana sandwiches?" Elvis almost choked on a laugh. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches, his favorite. This was going to be an adventure, Leo, he said, a serious yet utterly delighted expression on his face. "The elves are very real, and you, my dear boy, have stumbled upon one of their most closely guarded. It's their secret fuel for making all those toys." Leo gasped, completely enchanted. "Now," Elvis continued, looking towards the setting sun, "my schedule is quite tight, even for a quick reconnaissance trip. Do you think you could perhaps leave that list of yours for me? Somewhere special? Tonight, perhaps?" Leo thought for a moment. "I could leave it on my windowsill, with some cookies for you and the elves." "Excellent idea, Leo," Elvis boomed, a genuine, hearty laugh escaping him. "And tell me, where might old Saint Nick find this windowsill? I'm terrible with directions when I'm not in my sleigh, you see." Leo eagerly gave his address, not realizing he was giving it to Elvis Presley, but to Santa Claus himself. As he finished, a car pulled up to the curb. Mrs. Henderson's. She looked flustered, scanning the street for Leo. "Oh, that's Mrs. Henderson," Leo exclaimed. "She's supposed to take me home." "Perfect timing," Elvis said smoothly, already planning his next move. He winked at Leo. "Now remember, not a word about seeing me like this to anyone." "Okay. It's our little secret. Santa's trying to keep a low profile before the big night. I won't tell a soul," Leo promised, his face glowing with importance. He waved goodbye to his Santa and ran towards Mrs. Henderson's car, bursting with a secret that would make him the envy of every kid in Memphis. Elvis watched him go, a profound sense of warmth spreading through him. He hadn't felt this alive, this genuinely happy, in a long time. Turned to face Joe, who was now walking towards him, a look of utter bewilderment on his face. "Santa Claus, eh?" Joe asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "You just told a kid you were Santa Claus," Elvis grinned, a wide, genuine grin that reached his eyes. He caught me. Joe, what was I supposed to do? Ruin his Christmas spirit? He paused, then rubbed his hands together. Now, Joe, about that list and the elves' favorite fuel this Christmas, we're going to make sure Leo Maxwell has the most magical Christmas of his life, and we're going to need some help. A lot of having him. This is going to be a long Christmas, the best one yet. Joe, Elvis corrected, looking back towards the street where Leo's car had just disappeared. The very best one yet. The adventure had just begun. Joe Esposito, Elvis's closest confidant and tour manager, had seen a lot of things in his years working for the king. He'd seen Elvis spend a small fortune on cars for strangers, give away jewelry on a whim, and pull off concerts that seemed impossible. Convincing a 7-year-old he was Santa Claus then, planning to fulfill that promise. That was a new level of extraordinary. "All right, here," Joe said, following Elvis into the grand living room of Graceland. "Let's talk logistics. You really going to do this? What about your schedule? First, we need that list." What was the address again? Joe pulled out a small notepad. He'd scribbled it down while Elvis was talking to Leo. 1472 Cottonwood Lane, just a few blocks north. Good, we'll need a stealth team for tonight, no flashy cars. Something discreet, maybe the Cadillac from 62, the one with the faded paint job blend in. Elvis chuckled. Santa's trying to stay under the radar, remember? Joe rubbed his temples. Stealth Team E. It's just a kid's Christmas list. You want me to send Red and Sonny over there in the dark? Precisely. Elvis snapped his fingers. They're big guys, perfect for this. Strong, quiet. Tell them to look for a windowsill and leave a note, something Santa-like. A note? Joe sighed. What? Ho, ho, ho. Thanks for the cookies. Something more personal, Elvis mused. Like your belief warms my heart. Leo, the elves are already busy. Keep believing. Something like that. And definitely take the cookies. For the elves. He winked. Joe couldn't help but crack a smile. All right, E. And what about the gifts? We're going to need to know what's on this list before we can start. This isn't like buying you a new Cadillac, you know. Kids' toys. I wouldn't know where to start. That's where our elves come in, Elvis declared, his eyes gleaming. The boys, we'll turn Graceland into the North Pole. A secret operation. This is going to be magnificent, Joe. Think about it. Giving joy, pure, unadulterated joy. Better than any standing ovation. Later that evening, after a very interesting dinner where Elvis insisted on having an extra plate of peanut butter and banana sandwiches for the elves, Joe briefed the rest of the inner circle, the Memphis Mafia. Red West, Sonny West, Marty Lacker, Jerry Schilling, and Lamar Fike were gathered in the recreation room, looking at Joe with a mix of confusion and disbelief. So let me get this straight, Red West, said a huge man with a gentle heart. He told some kid he was Santa Claus, and now we gotta break into this kid's house to get his Christmas list. Not break in, Red Joe corrected. Just retrieve a list from a windowsill. Leo said he'd leave it there. He's expecting Santa. We just need to make sure. Santa gets it. Sonny West, always the practical one, scoffed. And what if the kid's mom sees us two big fellas lurking around a kid's window at night? We'll be arrested for attempted breaking and entering before you can say, ho, ho, ho. You go in a plain car like Joe, said Elvis, chimed in. Walking in, dressed in a comfortable tracksuit, clearly enjoying the chaos he was creating. Wear dark clothes and be quick. Red, you're the master of stealth. Sonny, you're the lookout. He clapped his hands together. Consider this Operation Yuletide Incognito. Marty Lacker, Ever the cynic shook his head. You're crazy. This is going too far for a bit of fun. Elvis challenged, his eyes losing some of their earlier playfulness. Marty, this isn't just about fun. This is about magic. This kid, Leo, he believes, and how many times do we get to be a part of something that pure anymore? We're going to make this Christmas unforgettable for him. Jerry Schilling, usually more reserved, spoke up. He's got a point, guys. We spend our lives giving the public what they want, but this is different. This is for one kid. No spotlights, no cameras, just pure goodness. His words seemed to resonate. The room fell silent for a moment, the initial disbelief giving way to a grudging acceptance. Then a glimmer of excitement. All right, Red said, adjusting his stance. We'll do it for the kid and for Santa. Excellent, Elvis beamed. Now, for the elves part, we need a workshop. The basement's too big, too dark. What about the trophy room? We can clear it out, cover the trophies. We'll need wrapping paper, ribbons, bows, and toys. Lots of toys. The Memphis Mafia exchanged glances. This was a whole production. A few hours later, Red and Sonny, dressed in dark jackets and hats, drove the nondescript Cadillac slowly down Cottonwood Lane. The house was small, with a single light on in the front room. As instructed, they parked a block away and approached on foot, moving like shadows. There it is, Red whispered, pointing to a small, slightly crooked windowsill. A neatly folded piece of paper was visible, held down by a small, half-eaten plate of cookies and a glass of milk. Sonny chuckled. Cookies and milk for Santa. And the peanut butter and banana sandwiches for the elves, I bet. Red carefully reached up, retrieved the list, and placed a small folded note under the plate. He took a cookie, took a bite, and made a show of enjoying it. Good cookie, he mumbled. Better than the ones Cook makes. Sonny snorted, but couldn't resist taking one too. They silently slipped back to the car. Back at Graceland, Elvis was practically vibrating with anticipation. When Red and Sonny walked in, Joe already had a pot of coffee brewing. Got it, Red announced, holding up the folded paper like a sacred scroll. Elvis snatched it, his hands trembling slightly. He carefully unfolded the paper. A real telescope so I can see the stars, and maybe a microscope so I can see little bugs and stuff. A chemistry set for science experiments. And something for my mom. She worked so hard. Maybe a new coat, hers is old. Or just something nice so she can smile more. Thank you, Santa. I really, really believe in you. Hive. Leo Max. Elvis read the list aloud, his voice softening as he read Leo's heartfelt wishes. A new Captain comic, a telescope, a chemistry set, and then the last item, something for his mom, so she could smile more. A lump formed in Elvis's throat. This wasn't just about toys. This was about a child's love for his hard-working mother. This was about hope. A new coat for his mom. Elvis repeated, his voice barely a whisper. He looked up at his friends, his eyes shining. Boys, this is more important than I thought. We're not just playing Santa. We're bringing some much-needed joy to a whole family. Clapped his hands together. A renewed determination in his voice. And a new coat for his mom? Find out her size, discreetly. Maybe a nice scarf, too. Something warm and beautiful. The men, initially reluctant, were now caught up in the energy. This wasn't just about Elvis's whim anymore. It felt like something genuinely good. And for the elves, Elvis added, a mischievous grin, returning, we need to stock up on peanut butter and bananas, lots of them. This is going to be the most magical Christmas Memphis has ever seen. The king of rock and roll had a new mission. And this time, his stage was a child's imagination. And his audience was one hopeful little boy. The transformation of Graceland's trophy room into Santa's secret workshop began the very next morning. It wasn't just Elvis and Joe anymore. The entire Memphis Mafia, along with a few trusted Graceland staff, were now officially part of Operation Yuletide Incognito. The initial skepticism had largely melted away, replaced by a strange mix of enthusiasm and the giddy excitement of children planning a secret fort. "All right, boys, clear this stuff out," Elvis boomed, pointing to his gold records and awards, which were carefully being moved to a storage room. "We need space. Elves need room to work." The room usually reserved for displaying Elvis's glittering achievements was soon filled with packing boxes, rolls of wrapping paper, and shopping bags from every major department store in Memphis. The sheer volume of purchases was staggering even for Elvis. He was going overboard, adding extras, imagining a child's delight. "You sure you need 3 different kinds of telescopes?" Joe asked, holding up a star chart, looking perplexed. He just asked for a real telescope that can see distant galaxies, Joe, Elvis corrected, carefully examining a high-powered lens, and one that's easy for a young astronomer to use, and a small portable one for stargazing in the backyard. Options. Joe, options. Santa always provides options. Red and Sunny returned from their comic book reconnaissance mission looking triumphant. They had managed to track down not only the specific Captain Comet issue Leo needed, thanks to some strategic phone calls and a generous tip to a local comic shop owner, but also a whole collection of vintage comics, neatly bagged and boarded. "And check this out," Red said, holding up a beautifully illustrated children's book about astronomy. "Thought this might go good with the telescopes," Elvis beamed. "Excellent, Red. See, you're a natural-born elf." Marty, despite his earlier cynicism, was meticulously assembling a remote control car, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This thing goes 50 miles an hour. Kid's gonna be thrilled." "He deserves it," Elvis murmured, his eyes scanning Leo's list again. Now, what about his mom's coat? That had been the trickiest part. How to get Sarah Maxwell's coat size without raising suspicion? They couldn't just ask her. Finally, Elvis had come up with a brilliant, if slightly elaborate plan. He'd had his publicist arrange a random charity event for single mothers in the community, inviting Sarah Maxwell to attend. At the event, one of Elvis's female assistants, disguised as a volunteer, had subtly complimented Sarah's old coat and offered to measure her for a donation. Getting her size without her realizing. "It's a size 8, Joe reported. "And we found a beautiful wool blend, deep forest green, should make her eyes pop." "Perfect," Elvis said, imagining Sarah's smile. The workshop was becoming a controlled explosion of activity. Piles of toys grew taller. Stacks of vibrant wrapping paper covered every available surface. Ribbons and bows of every color were being meticulously curled. Elvis, despite his initial enthusiasm, found himself caught up in the details, wrapping gifts with a surprising degree of care, humming Christmas carols off-key. "Careful with that bow," Marfike, known for his robust humor, teased. "Looks like you're trying to tie a shoelace with it." Elvis shot him a playful glare. "It's an art, Lamar, a delicate art, known only to Santa and his most skilled elves." The atmosphere in Graceland had changed. The usual entourage chaos was replaced by a sense of shared purpose, a quiet joy that permeated the mansion. They weren't just Elvis's friends and employees anymore. They were a secret Santa squad, united by a 7-year-old's unwavering belief. One afternoon, as Elvis was trying to tape a notoriously difficult wrapping paper seam, his eyes caught sight of a framed photo on a shelf, an old snapshot of him as a child, sitting on Santa's lap, his face beaming with a similar pure wonder. He remembered that feeling, the absolute magic of Christmas, the belief that anything was possible. It was a feeling he hadn't truly felt in years, certainly not since becoming the king. He'd given so much, earned so much. But had he truly felt much? This was different. "You know," he mused aloud, more to himself than to the busy elves around him, "when you're up on stage or making movies, it's all about putting on a show, making people believe in you. But this," he looked at the mountain of gifts, the careful craftsmanship, the sheer dedication of his friends. "This is about making someone believe in something bigger, something truly magical. Joe, who was struggling with a complex instruction manual for a remote control airplane, looked up. "Yeah, it's good work, different. It's real," Elvis corrected, a soft smile on his face. "This is real." The days leading up to Christmas Eve were a blur of secret deliveries from toy stores, late-night wrapping sessions, fueled by coffee and Elvis's endless supply of peanut butter and banana sandwiches, which the elves now genuinely enjoyed, and whispered conversations about Santa's delivery plan. They even started to plan for the sleigh. Elvis ever, the showman envisioned something grand yet discreet. They settled on a specially modified white Cadillac limousine, usually reserved for his grand entrances, now being fitted with hidden compartments and a specially designed sleigh bell sound system. It would be painted matte white to blend into a potential snowy night, and the usual flashy chrome would be toned down. And reindeer, Marty joked one evening as they reviewed the final list of gifts. Elvis paused, a glint in his eye. "We're working on it, Marty. We're working on it." He wasn't joking. He was serious. He was going to make this as authentic as possible within the limits of reality and his own considerable imagination. The Graceland workshop, once a place of trophies, was now a place of dreams. And the king, surrounded by his loyal elves, felt more alive, more purposeful than he had in years. The stage was set for the most extraordinary Christmas delivery Memphis had ever seen. As December drew closer to its festive peak, the energy within Graceland buzzed with a unique kind of excitement. Operation Yuletide Incognito had taken on a life of its own. Every corner of the mansion seemed to hold a secret. Stacks of wrapped presents hidden under tarps, boxes of supplies for the sleigh, and the lingering scent of pine from the freshly cut Christmas trees that adorned every room. Elvis, who usually thrived on spontaneity, was now meticulously planning every detail of Leo's Christmas Eve delivery. He'd even pulled out old maps of Memphis, tracing routes, calculating timings, and imagining the scene. "All right, boys, huddle up," Elvis called, gathering his elves in the now cramped workshop, which was piled high with beautifully wrapped gifts. "Tonight is the night, Christmas Eve. This isn't just about dropping off presents. This is about preserving a dream, making magic happen." Joe Esposito held up a detailed drawing. "Here's the plan. We'll use the specially modified white limousine. It's quiet, blends in at night, and we've tinted the windows so no one can see inside. We've even rigged a subtle sleigh bells." Lamar chuckled. "You're really going all out, eh? Authenticity, Lamar." "It's all about the experience," Elvis countered, a wide grin on his face. "Red Sonny, you'll be on gift delivery. You're strong, you're fast, you'll be the Santa's helpers on the ground. We'll approach the house at precisely 11:45 p.m. Leo should be fast asleep by then." "How are we getting the presents inside?" Sonny asked, looking at the sheer volume of gifts. "The front door. The chimney's a no-go, unless you plan on wearing a suit that melts." Elvis chuckled. "Leave the gifts in the living room near their tree if they have one. If not, just somewhere visible." Joe nodded. "I've cased the place. Small living room opens right into the kitchen. Trees should be easy to spot." "And the grand finale," Elvis said, his eyes gleaming. "After the gift turns, we'll wait for 2 minutes. Then on my signal, Joe, you hit the sleigh bells. Just a few chimes, enough to register, but not enough to wake the whole neighborhood. Then we pull away, silent as the night." "What about the mom?" Marty asked. "Sarah Maxwell. What if she's still awake?" "That's where the diversion comes in," Elvis explained. "Joe, you and I will have a backup plan. A mechanical issue with the car right down the street. Maybe a flat tire, enough noise to draw attention away from the house, if necessary, but I have a feeling Leo's mom will be fast asleep." 2. He paused, a more serious note entering his voice. "And we leave a note from Santa reassuring Leo, telling him how proud we are of his belief and for his thoughtfulness towards his mom. I've written it out." He pulled a small, elegant card from his pocket. It read, "My dearest Leo, you are truly a remarkable young man. Your belief fills my heart with joy, and your kindness towards your wonderful mother is the brightest star in the night sky." The elves worked tirelessly, powered by your delicious peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep that heart full of goodness. Merry Christmas, and remember the magic is always within you. With deepest gratitude, and a ho-ho-ho Santa Claus and his hard-working elves. The men read the note, and a quiet sense of awe filled the room. This was more than just a prank or a generous act. This was about nurturing a child's spirit. "Now, one last thing," Elvis added, his voice dropping slightly. "For Sarah Maxwell. The coat, the scarf, we're not just leaving them. With the other gifts, we need to make it look like a separate delivery, maybe from a secret admirer. We're a community support program. We don't want her to feel like charity. She deserves a gift for her. Not just for being Leo's mom. I'll arrange a separate, discreet drop-off for her gifts, maybe a few hours earlier, from a charitable foundation. No direct connection to Santa or Graceland." "Perfect," Elvis said, satisfied. "It's all about preserving dignity, Joe. That's what Santa would do." As evening fell on Christmas Eve, Graceland became a hive of hushed activity. The white limousine was parked in the back, its engine purring softly as the team made final checks. Gifts were loaded carefully, arranged to be easily accessible. Elvis, surprisingly nervous, paced the mansion halls, dressed not in his usual flamboyant attire, but in a simple dark jacket, black pants, and a dark cap. "His incognito Santa uniform?" Jerry Schilling asked, noticing Elvis's uncharacteristic quietness. Jerry Elvis replied, looking out the window at the swirling flakes of the first Memphis snow. "Just thinking. This is a big deal, you know, for a kid like Leo. I just hope we get it right." Jerry clapped him on the shoulder. "You've gone above and beyond. This kid's gonna have the Christmas of his life, and you know what? So are we." At precisely 11:30 p.m., the white limousine, looking more like a ghost in the swirling snow than a rock star's ride, pulled out of Graceland's gates. Joe was driving, Elvis was in the passenger seat, and Red, Sonny, and Marty were squeezed into the back, surrounded by the carefully stacked presents. The usual festive tunes on the radio were replaced by a hushed silence, broken only by the hum of the engine and the soft falling snow. As they approached Cottonwood Lane, Elvis felt a strange tightening in his chest. It wasn't stage fright, it was something deeper, a profound sense of responsibility mixed with sheer exhilaration. This was real magic, not an illusion. They pulled up 2 blocks from Leo's house. "All right," Joe Elvis whispered. "Slow and steady, park on the next block. Red, Sonny. You know the drill. 5 minutes. Get in, leave the gifts. Get out. Marty, you're our lookout." The 3 men slipped out of the limousine, disappearing into the falling snow like silent shadows. Elvis and Joe waited, peering through the tinted windows, their hearts pounding in unison. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Then, after what felt like an hour, but was likely less than 4 minutes, Red and Sonny reappeared, their faces flush with excitement, giving a thumbs up. "Go, Joe, go," Elvis hissed, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. As Joe slowly began to pull away, Elvis gave him the signal. A soft, melodic ding-ding-ding of sleigh bells echoed faintly in the snowy night, quickly fading as the limousine sped silently down the street, turning the corner and vanishing into the darkness. Elvis leaned back in his seat, a profound sigh escaping him. He looked at Joe, who was smiling, his eyes sparkling. "We did it," Joe Elvis whispered, a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the car's heater. "We did it." Somewhere in Memphis, a 7-year-old boy was about to wake up to the most magical Christmas morning of his life. His belief in Santa Claus, and in the magic of the world, stronger than ever, and the king, disguised as a benevolent trickster, felt like a boy again himself. Christmas morning dawned bright and crisp in Memphis, the city blanketed in a pristine layer of fresh snow. For Leo Maxwell, it was the kind of morning usually reserved for dreams. He woke up with a start. The memory of yesterday's incredible encounter with Santa Claus himself still fresh in his mind. He'd barely slept a wink, his mind buzzing with possibilities. Tiptoed out of his bedroom, his small heart thumping with anticipation. He glanced at the windowsill first. The cookies were gone, and the glass of milk was empty. In its place was the small, elegant card he'd seen Santa write. Leo snatched it up, his eyes wide as he read the beautiful script. It was real. Santa had been there. Practically flew into the living room, his bare feet barely touching the cold floor, and then he stopped, gasped and stared. The small living room, usually a bit sparse, was transformed. Underneath their modest artificial Christmas tree, which had only a few ornaments and strings of lights, was a mountain of gifts. Big ones, small ones, wrapped in glittering paper with perfect bows. It was more presents than Leo had ever seen in his entire life. Mom, wake up, he came, Santa came. Leo shrieked, his voice bubbling with uncontainable joy. Sarah Maxwell, tired from a late shift and a restless night of worrying about money, stumbled into the living room, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She expected to see a few small gifts, perhaps a new toy truck Leo had mentioned. Nothing more. They had agreed to keep Christmas simple this year, but what she saw made her gasp. Her eyes widened, taking in the impossible display. Leo, already tearing into the first present, barely heard her. He unearthed the brightly colored Captain Comet comic book, a pristine, unopened issue. "It's the one I wanted. It's not torn," he cried, clutching it to his chest. Next came a box that, when opened, revealed a gleaming, powerful telescope, complete with a tripod and a guide to the constellations. "A real telescope, I can see the stars." Then a sleek, red remote control car, looking fast even in its box, a chemistry set with dozens of vials and instructions, a professional-looking microscope. Each gift was more incredible than the last, far beyond anything Sarah could have afforded. Mom looked. Leo held up a beautiful, warm-looking forest green coat, neatly folded on top of a luxurious scarf. "This is for you," Santa said. "It was a separate delivery from a community support program," he beamed, remembering the note. "He said you work so hard." Sarah's breath hitched. She picked up the coat, the soft wool feeling impossibly luxurious. It was exactly her size, and the scarf was silk in a shade that matched her eyes perfectly. She looked from the coat to the mountain of presents, then at her son's radiant face, pure unadulterated happiness shining from him who... How? It couldn't have been Santa. She was a single mother, working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. No one knew how much they were struggling. And this was a fortune. Truly enormous, thoughtful, and unbelievably generous fortune. But as she looked at Leo, whose eyes were still sparkling with belief, she knew she couldn't shatter his illusion. Not now, not on Christmas morning. The magic was too real for him. "Oh, Leo," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, pulling him into a tight hug. "Santa was very, very good to us this year, wasn't he?" She buried her face in his hair, tears stinging her eyes, tears of gratitude, of disbelief, and of overwhelming relief that her son was experiencing such boundless joy. Someone somewhere had done an incredibly kind, secretive, and elaborate thing for them. Meanwhile, back at Graceland, Elvis was enjoying a very different kind of Christmas morning. He'd barely slept, the adrenaline from the night before still coursing through him. He was nursing a cup of coffee, surrounded by his elves, who were all looking surprisingly refreshed. "Think he liked it?" Elvis asked, a hopeful note in his voice. "He's a kid," Joe chuckled. "He's gonna lose his mind. You went all out." "Yeah, well," Elvis said, shrugging, but a wide smile was playing on his lips. "It felt right, you know. I kept thinking about that look in his eyes. Pure belief." Suddenly the phone rang. It was one of Elvis's assistants who had been instructed to discreetly call the Maxwell house under the guise of a charity follow-up call, just to gauge the reaction. Elvis snatched the phone. Yes. What's the word? Is every passing second? He did. He found them all? And the coat. She liked the coat. Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, yes. Tell them we're happy to help. Merry Christmas. To them, too. He hung up the phone, a triumphant, almost giddy expression on his face. He loved it, boys. He loved every single thing. And his mom, she was overwhelmed, said it was the most magical Christmas ever. A cheer went up from the Memphis Mafia. It wasn't the roar of a concert crowd, but it was just as satisfying. They had made magic happen. So, what's next, Santa? Marty quipped, raising his coffee mug. Elvis chuckled. Next, we let him believe we don't interfere, that the magics settle in. But we keep an eye out, make sure Leo stays on the nice list, and make sure his mom is doing okay. We don't just disappear after Christmas, do we? Santa is always watching, after all. He leaned back in his chair, a profound sense of peace settling over him. For years, he'd been chasing fame, success, and the adoration of millions. He'd found all of it, but it often felt empty. A performance, but helping Leo, seeing his pure belief, experiencing the quiet joy of giving without expecting anything in return, that felt more real, more fulfilling than any applause. You know, Elvis said, looking out at the snow-covered grounds of Graceland. I think this Santa business, it might be my favorite gig yet. And as the first rays of the Christmas morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the remnants of wrapping paper and empty gift boxes, a new kind of purpose settled in Elvis Presley's heart. He might be the king of rock and roll to the world, but to one little boy in Memphis, he was the embodiment of Christmas magic, and that, he realized, was the greatest honor of all. The weeks following Christmas were filled with a quiet contentment for Leo Maxwell. His room was transformed into a wonderland of scientific discovery and imaginative play. Telescope became his constant companion, allowing him to explore the moon's craters and imagine distant galaxies. Chemistry sets spark explosive but safe reactions, and the microscope revealed hidden worlds and backyard leaves. The remote control car zoomed across the living room floor, often crashing harmlessly into furniture, much to his mom's amusement. Sarah, too, felt a renewed sense of hope. The beautiful new coat kept her warm on her walks to work, a constant reminder of the anonymous kindness that had touched their lives. She never spoke of the impossibility of it all to Leo, nurturing his belief in Santa with every encouraging word and smile. She knew someone out there had a truly enormous heart. Meanwhile, at Graceland, Elvis was enjoying a new kind of fame. Not the screening fans or flashing cameras, but the quiet satisfaction of a secret well-kept. He'd occasionally drive past Cottonwood Lane discreetly, just to catch a glimpse of Leo playing in his yard, sometimes with the remote control car, sometimes peering through his telescope. Each sighting filled Elvis with a warmth that rivaled any standing ovation. He's using the telescope, Joe would report excitedly after one of his own casual drive-bys. Saw him looking up at the sky just now. Excellent. Elvis would beam. He's a natural astronomer, I tell you. The elves of the Memphis Mafia had returned to their usual duties, but with a subtle shift. They had all been touched by the Santa operation. They were a little kinder, a little more patient, and certainly more prone to secret smiles when the topic of Christmas or childhood belief came up. One afternoon, a few weeks after Christmas, Elvis was in his music room, strumming his guitar, when he saw something on the local news, a segment on Memphis's brightest young minds. And there, on the screen, was Leo. He was at the local library participating in a science fair. The reporter was interviewing him about his projects, which included his impressive telescope setup, a small display on the secret world of insects, with his microscope, and a bubbling, colorful chemistry experiment. And what inspired you to get into science, young man? The reporter asked. Leo beaming, adjusted his glasses. Santa Claus, He brought me the best presents ever. He said the elves use science to make toys, and that believing in magic is part of science too, because it makes you wonder about things you can't see." Elvis let out a delighted laugh, startling Joe, who was entering the room. "Hear that, Joe? Santa Claus? He's giving old Saint Nick credit." "That kid's sharp," Joe said, shaking his head with a smile. "And a smart cookie, good for him." The news segment then showed Sarah Maxwell looking a little overwhelmed but undeniably proud. "We're just so grateful," she said to the camera, gesturing vaguely. "Someone was incredibly generous this Christmas. It truly changed things for us. It gave Leo so much joy, and for that, I'm eternally thankful." He hadn't expected the gratitude to be so public, even if it was generalized. It just reinforced that what they did was more than just a grand gesture. It was apropos. He spent the next few days mulling something over. He couldn't reveal himself as Santa. That would shatter Leo's world. But he wanted to do something more, something that acknowledged the boy and maybe subtly continued to foster his burgeoning interest in science and the arts. He came up with a plan. A subtle, almost invisible hand. He instructed Joe to discreetly arrange for a scholarship fund to be set up in an anonymous name, the North Star Foundation, which would specifically provide grants for promising young students in Memphis to pursue their interests in science, art, or music. The first and primary recipient would be Leo Maxwell, ensuring he had access to books, classes, and equipment as he grew older. The scholarship would be presented through the library, ensuring it appeared as a merit-based award, not charity. "And one more thing," Joe Elvis added, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "We need to send Leo a little token, something to remind him of Santa, but from a secret admirer who knows he's a good kid." A few days later, a small, anonymous package arrived at Leo Maxwell's house. It contained a beautiful, leather-bound journal with a stylized compass embossed on the cover, and a small, antique-looking bronze key attached to a note. The note, written in elegant cursive handwriting, not Elvis's usual scrawl, but one he'd practiced carefully, read, "To Leo, a seeker of knowledge and keeper of magic. This journal is for your discoveries, big and small. The key is for the universe to unlock its secrets. Always remember the greatest magic lies in what you truly believe. From a friend who believes in you." Leo was ecstatic. A secret friend, just like Santa had secret elves. He immediately started sketching stars and planets in the journal, and he wore the key around his neck, a tangible symbol of his wondrous Christmas. For Elvis, this was more satisfying than a chart-topping hit. He was still the king, yes, but he was also a secret benefactor, a guardian of dreams. He even started carrying a small compass charm in his pocket, a quiet nod to Leo's gift. He realized something profound: his music, his fame. It gave him the power to do things. But it was the quiet, anonymous acts of kindness, like being Santa to a little boy, that truly filled his own heart. It was a role he never knew he needed, and one he now cherished more than any crown. He was the king, yes, but also a king who understood the quiet power of a whispered secret, a selfless gift, and the enduring magic of belief. Years passed, as they always do, quietly turning pages in the story of life. Leo Maxwell grew from a curious 7-year-old into a bright, earnest young man. His childhood room, once full of toys, now housed complex scientific models, stacks of college textbooks, and advanced telescopes. He was studying astrophysics at the University of Memphis, a scholarship student excelling in his chosen field. The North Star Foundation had indeed provided the steady support he needed, enabling him to pursue his dreams without the financial burden his mother had once faced. He still carried the small bronze key around his neck, a sentimental reminder of a childhood filled with magic. Sarah Maxwell, seeing her son thrive, often thought about that miraculous Christmas. She never forgot the feeling of the soft wool coat or the quiet dignity of the anonymous gifts. she continued to work hard, but with a lighter heart, knowing that somewhere out there, there were truly good people in the world. And Elvis Presley, the king, continued his reign, touring, recording, the Las Vegas residencies. They consumed his life. But even as his star burned brightly, there was a quiet internal shift. The memory of Leo, the boy who mistook him for Santa, remained a cherished secret. He would occasionally ask Joe Esposito for updates, not directly about Leo, but about the North Star Foundation and its progress. He always made sure the funding was steady and generous. He still chuckled to himself when he remembered Leo's question about the elves and peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Sometimes, late at night, when the pressures of fame felt too heavy, he'd think of Leo's pure belief, and it would bring a quiet smile to his face. A reminder of a simpler, more profound joy. One sweltering summer afternoon, about 10 years after that magical Christmas Eve, Elvis was enjoying a rare day off at Graceland. He was out by the pool, idly flipping through a magazine, when Joe approached him, a curious look on his face. "Who is it, Joe?" "Well," Joe hesitated. "It's Leo Maxwell, all grown up." Elvis's heart gave a little jolt. Leo. After all these years, he hadn't seen the boy since that blustery December day. Would he still have that bright, innocent spark in his eyes? Really? Elvis sat up straighter, a sudden eagerness in his voice. Is he doing well?" "Looks like it," Joe confirmed. "He's leading the group, actually, very confident. Sharp kid. He's talking to the tour guide right now about the architecture." Elvis thought fast. He couldn't just walk up to him. He was Elvis Presley, not Santa Claus anymore. But he wanted to see him, to talk to him, without revealing the truth. "All right, Joe," Elvis said. "I'll join the tour just casually, like I'm taking my own private stroll. No big announcement. Just blending in, you? In Graceland?" "Just try me," Elvis retorted, already rising. Quickly changed into a simple dark shirt and slacks, trying to look as inconspicuous as possible. He joined the back of the student group as they entered the living room. Leo was indeed there, taller, leaner, with a thoughtful expression on his face as he listened to the tour guide. He had a pair of glasses perched on his nose, and Elvis noticed a familiar bronze key glinting faintly on a chain around his neck. It was Leo. Definitely. Elvis listened as Leo asked integral questions about the history of the house, about the design choices, even about the acoustics in the music room. He was clearly intelligent, curious, and still had that spark, though it was now tempered with a young man's thoughtfulness. As they moved through the house, Elvis managed to drift closer to Leo, pretending to admire a piece of furniture. "Excuse me," Elvis said, his voice lower than usual, trying not to draw attention. "Couldn't help but overhear. You seem very knowledgeable about this place." Leo turned a polite smile on his face. He didn't recognize Elvis immediately, not in his casual clothes and with a decade having passed. "Oh, hello, sir. I'm Leo Maxwell. I'm a student at the university. We're on a field trip." He gestured to the group. "It's an amazing house, isn't it?" Elvis nodded, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "It is. I've always found it inspiring. And you're studying science, I hear? Astrophysics?" Leo's eyes widened slightly. "Yes, sir. How did you know?" Elvis chuckled, leaning in conspiratorially, just as he had years ago. "Let's just say a little bird told me, or perhaps a certain star. I heard you were quite passionate about the cosmos from a young age." Leo's face lit up with a familiar boyish enthusiasm. "Oh yes, ever since I got my first telescope, it was the best Christmas ever. Someone left me the most incredible gifts, and they really got me thinking about the universe." He touched the key around his neck. "And I still have this key. It reminds me to keep looking for answers, keep believing in the unknown." Elvis felt a profound swell of emotion in his chest. The key, he remembered sending it, and the telescope, it had truly made a difference. "That's a wonderful story, Leo," Elvis said, his voice a little husky. "And what a special key. Do you know who sent it?" Leo shook his head, a wistful smile on his face. No, just a friend who believes in you. I always hoped I'd meet them one day, or at least thank whoever arranged it. They really changed my life." He paused, looking around the opulent room. "You know this house, it feels kind of magical, like there are secrets here." Elvis grinned. "Oh, there are, Leo, believe me, many secrets and much magic." He hesitated for a moment, then added, "Keep that belief, Leo. It's the most powerful thing you own. And never stop looking at the stars." Just then, the tour guide announced they were moving on. "You too, Leo," Elvis said, watching him walk away, a satisfied smile on his face. He hadn't revealed his identity, and Leo still believed in the magic, still carried the key. And Elvis the King still played his secret role as the anonymous bringer of joy. It was perfect. As the tour group disappeared into another part of the house, Joe Esposito walked over, a knowing look on his face. "So you blended in," Elvis chuckled. A deep, contented sound. "You know, Joe, sometimes the greatest performances are the ones nobody ever sees." He glanced at the ceiling as if seeing past the roof to the stars beyond. "And Leo Maxwell, he's a shining example of what a little bit of magic can do." In the following months and years, the bond between Elvis Presley and Leo Maxwell, though unspoken and unknown to Leo, continued to deepen in Elvis's heart. He kept a close, discreet watch on Leo's progress. The North Star Foundation expanded its reach, quietly funding other promising students in Memphis. But Leo remained its primary, most cherished success. Elvis, despite his escalating schedule and the relentless demands of his career, found small moments of peace and purpose in this secret role. He learned that Leo had excelled in his undergraduate studies, then moved on to a prestigious graduate program in astrophysics at a top university. He was even publishing papers in scientific journals, dreaming of one day working for NASA. These updates, provided by Joe Esposito, who orchestrated the anonymous funding, became a quiet source of pride for Elvis. It was a different kind of fulfillment than the roar of a crowd or the flash of a camera. It was the quiet, profound joy of knowing he had genuinely impacted a young life, setting it on a course for success and wonder. One day, Elvis was watching a late-night talk show, flicking through channels. When he paused, the guest being interviewed was a young, brilliant astrophysicist. It was Leo Maxwell, now in his late 20s, handsome and confident with that same intelligent sparkle in his eyes. He was talking about his groundbreaking research on distant galaxies, his passion for the cosmos radiating from the screen. "Dr. Maxwell," the host asked, "you've achieved so much at such a young age. What first sparked your incredible passion for the stars?" Leo smiled, a warm, genuine smile that brought a lump to Elvis's throat. "Well, it's a bit of a sentimental story, but it all started one Christmas when I was 7. I received the most amazing telescope. Among other gifts, it felt like magic, like it came straight from Santa Claus himself." Paused, then touched the small bronze key that still hung around his neck, visible even under his professional attire. "I also received a journal and this little key from an anonymous friend who believed in me. It came with a note that said, 'The greatest magic lies,' and I've carried that with me ever since." It wasn't just about the gifts, it was the belief that someone, somewhere, cared enough to make a child's dream. Feliz mon moment. He reached into his own pocket, pulling out his compass charm. He looked from the television to the charm, a profound sense of gratitude and humility washing over him. Leo remembered he still remembered the magic. He still carried the key. The host, intrigued, pressed on. "So Santa Claus and a secret admirer? That's quite a story. Do you have any idea who this anonymous benefactor might be?" Leo shook his head, a thoughtful expression on his face. "No, never. My mom and I always wondered. We always assumed it was some kind of generous individual, perhaps someone who believed in fostering young minds, but whoever it was, they gave me not just gifts, but a purpose, a path. They truly changed my life." Concluded. I always hoped that one day I'd be able to do something similar for someone else, to pass on that kindness, that belief in magic, that sense of wonder." Elvis turned off the television. The studio lights of the set still bright in his mind. He sat there in the quiet of his living room, the weight of the moment settling on him. He hadn't just played Santa for a season. He had ignited a spark that had grown into a brilliant flame. Leo Maxwell, the boy who believed, was now a man who would inspire others, a testament to the ripple effect of unseen kindness. This, Elvis realized, was his true legacy, more enduring than any record or film. It wasn't just about being the king of rock and roll. It was about being the anonymous king of hearts, the quiet benefactor who saw a child's potential and nurtured it. He thought of the pressures he faced, the loneliness that sometimes came with fame, the constant need to perform. And then he thought of Leo, on national television, speaking with such earnest gratitude, a key from a friend he'd never met. It put everything into perspective. He called Joe Esposito immediately. "Joe," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I did, Joe said, his own voice sounding a little choked up. "He's all grown up. And look at him, still carrying that key." "Joe," Elvis continued, "I want to do more. The North Star Foundation. Let's expand it. Let's make sure more kids, especially those from humble backgrounds, get a chance to chase their dreams just like Leo. Let's make sure the magic keeps spreading." "Consider it done, Joe replied, a deep sincerity in his voice. "Consider it done." That night, Elvis felt a profound sense of peace. He had spent his life performing for the world, giving his heart and soul to millions. But this one small, secret act of kindness, this decade-long commitment to a single child's dream, had given him a profound sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of true magic. He went to bed that night, not as the king of rock and roll, but as the silent, smiling Santa, whose greatest joy was seeing a life transformed by the power of belief and the unseen hand of kindness. He closed his eyes, imagining Leo, now Dr. Maxwell, looking up at the stars, still chasing the universe's secrets, still wearing the key, and still carrying the magic within him. Decades passed, as they inevitably do. Elvis Presley's legendary status only grew, his music and image etched into the fabric of global culture. Graceland remained a pilgrimage site for fans from around the world, but the Elvis who walked its halls was increasingly weary, burdened by health issues and the relentless pressure of his public persona. Yet, even through the darker years, the memory of Leo Maxwell and the quiet joy of being his secret Santa remained a cherished light. The North Star Foundation flourished, growing into a significant philanthropic endeavor. Though its origins remained a closely guarded secret of the Presley estate, countless young people, much like Leo, were given opportunities they might never have had. All thanks to the anonymous generosity born from a child's innocent mistake. Leo Maxwell, now a distinguished astrophysicist, continued his brilliant career. He became a renowned expert in his field, frequently appearing on television and lecturing globally. He championed science education for underprivileged children, often speaking passionately about the importance of childhood wonder and the power of belief. He still wore the bronze key around his neck, a subtle personal talisman. Elvis would watch his old friend, Joe Esposito, beam with pride. Whenever Leo was in the news, knowing the story behind the man, Joe, a constant presence by Elvis's side, carried the secret of Operation Yuletide Incognito with the same loyalty he showed in all things. As Elvis's health declined in the mid-1970s, the memory of Leo became even more poignant. In moments of quiet reflection, he would often talk to Joe about Leo. "That boy Joe," he'd murmur, his voice softer. "He was something special. He reminded me of what matters. He brought the magic back." Joe would nod, understanding. "He did. He truly did. He's out there making a difference thanks to you." The summer of 1977 arrived, and with it an increasing frailty for Elvis. The world watched with concern, but only a few knew the quiet battles he fought within Graceland's walls. One sweltering August afternoon, as the heat pressed down on Memphis, Joe was there, as always, reading a newspaper. "Joe," Elvis said weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "Yeah." Joe leaned closer. "Leo," Elvis managed. Joe smiled. A knowing, gentle smile. "He's doing great. He just got back from a conference in Europe, still chasing those stars." Elvis nodded slowly, a deep sigh escaping him. "Good. That's good. Keep the magic alive, Joe, for him, for all of them." Those were some of the last clear words Elvis spoke to Joe. A few days later, on August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley, the King, passed away. The world mourned. The lights on Broadway and in Las Vegas dimmed. Graceland was flooded with grieving fans. Among the many tributes and eulogies that poured in, there was a quiet, personal reflection from Dr. Leo Maxwell. He wrote an op-ed for a national newspaper titled, "The King, the Stars, and the Magic of Belief." He spoke of Elvis Presley as an icon, a revolutionary artist, a man who brought joy to millions, but he also spoke with a depth that resonated beyond the usual fan tributes of the unseen magic that can change a life. "And I carried with me a small bronze key, a symbol of the universe's secrets, given by an anonymous friend who believed in me." He continued, "Elvis Presley, the King, gave so much to the world. He entertained, he inspired, he redefined music, but beyond the public persona, there was a generosity that for some extended beyond the spotlight. I've come to understand that truly great individuals often act with kindness in ways that are unseen. His legacy is not just in his music, but in the unseen ripples of kindness he created." Joe Esposito read Leo's op-ed in the quiet aftermath of Elvis's passing. Tears streamed down his face. Leo didn't know the full truth, but he understood the essence of it. He understood the kindness, he understood the magic. And he understood that Elvis, in his own unique way, had been Santa Claus. Years later, when Joe himself was older and reflecting on his life with Elvis, he often thought of Leo. He would sometimes consider telling him the truth. But then he would remember Elvis's words, "Keep the magic alive," and he would decide against it. The secret was not meant to be revealed. The magic of that Christmas wasn't about who Elvis was to the world, but who he was to one little boy, Santa Claus. And that secret, that beautiful, heartwarming truth, was a legacy more profound than any public honor. It was the legacy of unseen kindness, of pure belief, and of a king who played along beautifully, forever embodying the spirit of Christmas. For one very special child, years turned into decades. Leo Maxwell, now a distinguished elder statesman of astrophysics, had a career full of groundbreaking discoveries, inspiring lectures, and a deep, abiding love for the universe. He had established his own philanthropic foundation, the Guiding Star Fund, dedicated to supporting young students, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, who showed promise in science and exploration. His mother, Sarah, had lived a comfortable life, secure in the knowledge that her son's path was paved with purpose and generosity. Leo still kept the bronze key, though it was now carefully placed in a small velvet box on his desk next to a framed photo of his mother. He often looked at it, a quiet reminder of the inexplicable kindness that had changed his life. He had never learned the identity of his secret benefactor, but the impact of that Christmas and the anonymous friend who believes in you resonated through every aspect of his life's work. One crisp December day, Leo was invited to give a keynote speech at a major science conference held in Memphis. It was a homecoming for him, a chance to visit the city where his journey had truly begun. As part of the conference, there was a special reception at Graceland, now a renowned museum, preserved as it was when Elvis lived there. Leo walked through the familiar rooms, his mind drifting back to his childhood. He remembered the awe he felt during his university tour years ago, the polite exchange with the kind gentleman who had spoken about magic. He even chuckled, remembering how he'd once thought the king of rock and roll was Santa Claus. He knew better now, of course, but the memory always brought a smile to his face. As he walked through the trophy room, now carefully restored to its original splendor, he paused. He remembered an older, more casual gentleman in this very room, talking about the secrets and magic of the house. He couldn't quite place him, but the memory felt warm. Later, as the reception wound down, Leo found himself chatting with an elderly gentleman, a former Graceland employee who had worked closely with Elvis. This was Red West, one of Elvis's original elves, now retired and volunteering at the museum, sharing stories with visitors. "It's incredible to see this place preserved so beautifully," Leo remarked, genuinely impressed. Elvis Presley truly left an indelible mark on the world. "He did, son, he truly did. He was a good man, generous to a fault, had a heart as big as this mansion. I've always been grateful for the opportunities I received from the North Star Foundation," Leo said, his voice soft. "It was life-changing, and I always wondered who was behind such incredible anonymous generosity." Red looked at Leo, a knowing twinkle in his aged eyes. He had known the truth for decades. He had seen Leo's journey from a small boy with a wish list to the distinguished scientist he was today, and he knew Elvis would have been immensely proud. "You know Dr. Maxwell," Red began, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "Some folks say Elvis was a lot of things. A singer, a movie star, a legend, but to some of us who knew him best, and he loved making it happen for folks." Paused, then glanced around the quiet room as if sharing a sacred secret. "You remember that Christmas, don't you? The one where you got your telescope?" Leo's eyes widened. "Of course, it was the most magical Christmas of my life. I swore Santa Claus himself visited me." He laughed softly. Red chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. "Well, Santa had a very special interest in you, son. He'd say that Leo, he's got a special spark. We gotta nurture that spark." And he did. He made sure you had everything you needed to chase those stars. Leo stared at Red, a slow dawning realization spreading across his face. "Are you saying?" Red just winked a wide conspiratorial smile on his face, the same kind of smile Elvis had given Leo all those years ago. "Let's just say the king had many costumes, Dr. Maxwell, and one of his favorites was a certain jolly, incognito gentleman who loved peanut butter and banana sandwiches." Leo felt a wave of profound emotion wash over him. It clicked. The generous gifts, the anonymous scholarship, the friend who believes in you, the gentle voice of the man he'd met during his university tour, the subtle hints in Elvis's songs about dreams and belief. It all came together. Tears welled up in Leo's eyes, tears of understanding, of gratitude, and of a renewed sense of wonder. He really did that?" Red nodded. "He played along beautifully, didn't he? It was one of his proudest performances. Though it was just for you, he carried that secret and your belief close to his heart, till the very end. You were very special to him, Leo." Leo could only nod. The bronze key, still nestled in its box on his desk at home, suddenly felt heavier, imbued with an even deeper meaning. It wasn't just from a friend who believes in you anymore. It was from the king himself, a silent, powerful testament to the magic of unseen kindness. He looked around the trophy room filled with Elvis's gold records and awards, and saw them not just as symbols of fame, but as echoes of a generous, secretly magical heart. "Thank you," Leo finally managed, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for telling me, and thank him wherever he is." Red placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "He knows, Leo. He always knew." As Leo left Graceland that evening, the Memphis air felt different. It was still crisp, hinting at the approaching holidays, but now it carried a tangible sense of magic, a whisper of a secret shared. He looked up at the vast star-filled sky, the universe he had dedicated his life to exploring, and imagined the king up there among the brightest stars, still spreading joy, still playing along beautifully and forever, the secret Santa Claus of Memphis. The spirit of unseen kindness, once embodied by Elvis, now continued through Leo, ensuring the magic would live on in countless other dreams for generations to come.